Okay, pre-calc, we're back. Again, this is section 4.7. This is video 5. I'm going to go out of my way to just make a lot of videos for this section because this section really riddles a lot of students, and this section is doable. It just has to be laid out, like where the stuff comes from, why it's like that. So I just try to make a lot of videos to help. Okay, we're going to graph the arc cosine, and I would suggest anytime you try to graph any of these arcs, you use this table that I'll show you that I get. So it may even help you to graph like the original restricted function. So if you remember, we're just going to use this little segment here, and so let me just draw that first. For me, when I was learning this, I found it much easier to draw the arcs when I would first draw the original. But that's just how my brain works. So I would draw the original like this. Concave down, concave up. Okay, so I would draw this. So this is the restricted cosine. And I would note what points I used off of the cosine to draw this, right? So I used the point. This one is 0, 1. This one is pi over 2, 0. This one is pi negative 1. So if you remember all the effort I went through showing you how to graph 4.5 and 4.6, you could consider this, let me watch what I say, I don't want to confuse you. So when you take this to do the arc cosine, I'll go back to what I'm saying. I jumped the gun. So when you make the table for the arc cosine, you want to swap the x and y values, right? Because the inverse, the x and y, the domain and the range is swapped. So this point becomes 1, 0. This point becomes 0 pi over 2. This point becomes negative 1 pi. So what I jumped the gun on was you want to think of this as like the standard table for the arc. You want to think of this as a standard table for the arc. And then you would move around these points. And that's the technique I've been showing, how to move points around. So this would be the standard table for arc cosine. Okay, so I'm going to draw this. So I'm going to start by using the points, and then I'm going to use symmetry to find the other part. Okay, so let me just scale this now, because now the input is 1 and negative 1. So that's a different scale. Okay, so this would be 1. This would be negative 1. Okay, and the outputs now are the angles. So pi over 2 would be about here. Pi over 2 is 1.5 approximately. So it should be a third more than it, right? 1 should be 2/3, and then a third more will give you that. Now if this is pi over 2, then if this whole length is pi over 2, then pi would be twice that length to be up here. Alright, now let me put my points. 1, 0. I'm trying to talk out loud how you think about it. 0 pi over 2, negative 1 pi. So if you recall from the last couple videos and when we were learning inverses, right, we can start to put all this together, which is super cool. You know, like once you learn a concept, you can apply it to a lot of things, which is one of the reasons why I always like math. I like a tool that you can use on a lot of things. It's very useful. Okay, so remember, you're going to flip this guy like a pancake. You're going to flip it over that line, right? So this piece here that's concave down, it's going to flip over that line. Okay, so it's going to look like this. If you picture flipping that over. And then this guy over here is going to flip over to this side. Like this. Now, if it helps you, how you know you did it right is when you look at the graph, it should look like if you look at the two graphs together, it should look symmetrical. Like this, if I look at it all together, the right side looks like the left side. It looks like I'm cutting something that's symmetric in half. If something doesn't look symmetric, you did it wrong. Okay, so So this red line here, that is my arc cosine, the red guy. So y is the arc cosine of x. And again, just like the arc sine, it's a weirdo looking graph, right? There's always some weirdo in the crowd, and here it is, right? So arc cosine is a stumpy looking function. Yep, and the weirdo in the crowd's usually me, but that's okay. Right? It's this kind of stumpy looking dude. Okay, gang, that is it for the arc cosine. We just have one more because we're going to do arc sine, arc cos, and arc tan. Okay, so those are the three we're going to do. So I'll pick up with that in my next video. Hope you enjoyed this. Bye-bye.